Still on This Morning on ITV, your flagship program. We're broadcasting live from Mpape Hill this morning, the 19th day of May 2022. I am Ebenezer Oyetakin, your host on Nationalism and You. And on Nationalism and You, we will be taking a look at the arrest of the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmad Idris, within the week by the EFCC over what they considered as betrayal of office. We need to take a look at this morning. Is Comrade Babatunde Oluaju, a public affairs analyst. Comrade Babatunde Oluaju, you are welcome to our studio, and in the characteristic of this program, we say nationalism.
And of course, I mean, it is my duty as a Nigerian to contribute to justice, unity, and peace of the country, because these are the foundation on which any country can achieve anything called development. Justice, unity, and peace.
Thank you very much. And those are the things that are also encompassed in our national anthem, at what I call Article of Faith. When you received the report of the arrest of the Accountant General of the Federation, what came to your mind? How did you receive it?
Well, for me, it was just another manifestation of that culture of impunity. Because for me, when people think our problem is corruption, I personally think it is impunity.
Okay.
The culture of impunity is what fuels corruption, what fuels lack of respect for rules. That's what fuels people taking laws into their hands. Because there's this sense that if I do it, nothing will happen. I'm privileged, I'm special, I'm above the law. I'm not just one of them. I'm something different. And it is unfortunate that we have allowed that culture to fester to the point where people, I mean, there's no any tinge of conscience that no, I can't do this. No, no, I should not be seen here. That if I do this, what's the implication for hundreds of probably thousands and millions of people? It has become about me, myself, and I. And at the highest level, we have been condoning this. And it is just unfortunate because anytime you support, you are found involved in tribalism, in nepotism, what you are doing is that you are enthroning, you are encouraging that spirit of impunity. And until we are able to address impunity, its manifestation or what I would call the symptoms, like corruption, like lack of respect for rule and order, lack of justice for even our citizens, will continue to fester.
And talking about impunity, really, one tends to want to align with you, because the EFCC said we invited him more than 3 times and he refused to come. Why was he so emboldened?
Because he felt he's special, he's above the law, nothing will happen to him. He's one of those who are special breed among Nigerians, and that he felt, who is EFCC, who is Bawa, to be inviting me, Accountant General, either have direct access to the highest level of power. Those are the thoughts. Those were the thoughts. So a man who doesn't have that type of consciousness will immediately go and respond to EFCC. Even if you don't, even if you have something to hide, you first go. You'll be seen to at least to be respecting that institution, because it is not power. You are responding to the institution called EFCC, that is an agent, organ of the federal government of Nigeria that has been saddled with particular mandates to ensure that people behave well and they don't abuse offices. But because you felt that, who is he? Who is the FCC? I that have direct access to the highest level of power. Why should I respond? So it is that spirit and culture of impunity that I can do it, get away with it, and nothing happens to me.
How did we come to be engrossed in this spirit of impunity?
Well, we started...
What is the foundation of it?
I think when we started having sacred goats, when we started having a special class of citizens, when we started having at the highest level of political office, abuse of power without repercussion. I used to say this. Everywhere in the world, human beings are are bound to want to take advantage of gaps in the laws. But what makes us different from other countries, especially what we call the developed country, is that you are sure if you do the crime, you are going to do the time. You're almost 90% sure. And that is why they will commit resources. They don't mind to investigate for the next 10, 20 years. But they want to use you as a deterrence so that other members of society will know that if you commit this crime, you're definitely going to pay. But in this part of the world, you're almost 90% sure that if you commit the crime, nothing happens to you. And that even something happens to you, you can get a soft landing. Recently, those who have even been convicted, Dariye, in Yami, against all expectation, what happened? They got pardon.
And they even want to run for position.
Of course. Today, we still have one or two elements in the NSAS protests who are still either in detention or are still being hounded, still being charged to courts. Those who came out to say, no, there's enough of this impunity in our law enforcement sector. Some of them are still either in jail or being hounded or still being charged. But those who will spend public resources to investigate, some of these cases lasted almost a decade. At the end of the day, what happened? They were pardoned. That is how you fuel, that's how you fertilize that spirit of impunity, that nothing will happen. If it happens, I can always negotiate my way out of it. And then the picture is even painted that the more you steal, the more likely nothing happens to you. People steal phone.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. The volumes of the money involved, 80 billion. 80 billion. What is the implication? If this money is actually stolen by one person, or he serves as a proxy to multiple people to take 80 billion out of them, what is the implication?
Anyway,
socio-economically,
if you look at, even if you take 600 naira to a dollar, let us go that far, you are talking about close to $150 million. That's what you're talking about. In a country where the government keeps borrowing day in, day out. And that is why, and then look at it, our universities have been shut. ASU is not asking for, even now, what ASU is asking for, if they get that amount of money, I'm sure there will be peace in the educational sector today. If ASU gets 80 billion today, I'm telling you that strike will be called off. And that is why some people, including ASU, keep insisting that there's enough for our needs. What we don't have enough for is for our greed. There's enough money in this system that this government has no business borrowing. If we close all the loopholes, imagine one man 80 billion. Now take all those other agencies. Every agency. In fact, to give you an inkling, the Auditor General last report stated something that is very funny. In fact, as far back as the year, about 2 years ago, the Auditor General report says 436 agencies did not bother to respond to queries. They didn't bother to even, some has never submitted their reports, financial reports, since they were founded. You are talking 436. So imagine the amount of money that we are losing on a yearly basis. If we have 436, imagine just the quantum of money. If only one man can siphon 80 billion, please just take a fraction of that. Just take only 10 billion times 436 agencies that are either not submitting a report at all, or who don't bother to answer to queries, or who just do everything against the laws, against the Public Procurement Act, against basic financial regulations. Just take average of 10 billion and times it by 436 federal agencies. And you can see the hemorrhage this nation is suffering. It is no wonder, back in the 80s, IBB, the then president, once said that he wonders how this economy has not collapsed. And he was talking from a vantage position, and by then, the level of impunity has not even gotten to this point. The level of impunity, the level of stealing, because under the military, stealing, corruption was not democratized the way it is. It was just at least, just among the top echelon of the military officers. But today, it has gone as low as the councillor. So take the number of councillors, both elected and appointed. Take the number of local government chairmen. Take a number of commissioners in the state, number of governors, House of Assemblies. Come to the National Assembly, ministers, and then you can know the type of hemorrhage that this nation is suffering. So we have enough to meet our need. What we don't have enough for is our greed. So in terms of the damage, I just want to say, imagine what 80 billion can do to us. Imagine what we can save, what we can save in terms of the damage to our youth, in terms of the damage to the educational system, in terms of the damage to the rating of Nigerian university system globally. Imagine what it's, so if you don't do that, compare and contrast and see what 80 billion could have saved us, then you can see the enormity of damage that we are doing to ourselves as a nation. And just that's just a tip of the iceberg. You are talking of just one individual among the plethora. And I'm talking about 436 agencies.
Why do we have such level of demurrage, indiscipline, and plundering when we're supposed to have a supervisory, people playing supervisory role, oversight role on all of these agencies and government departments?
You know, there's this saying, and I'm sorry to you, go use Yoruba language. Yorubas have an adage, Amukun, Ewo Ewo. I think, I mean, when you see a crippled man and he has a load on his head and it appears he's tilting towards one side, and you say, man, this thing will fall off there. You are looking at just
the load.
Look downstairs now. Let's go to the root. And I'm sorry to say, a lot of people may not agree with me. I think one of the biggest damage, especially in the past 7 years, that has been done to us is the president. The president came in on a mantra of anti-corruption. And people expect, in the first 3, 5, 6 months of this government, when they came in 2009, there was relative sanity. Everybody sat up. They were not sure because nobody wanted to take the risk. But after 6 months, and people realized that too, it's the same of saying what people went back and they were even doing worse. And what more damage can you do to us as a nation if those who already are indicted either in court become your bride? They are the ones that are just like one of their party chairmen, the former one said that just cross over to us and your sins are forgiven. What more damage can you do to the psyche of a nation? Those who have spent public resources to prosecute and manage to get them convicted.
But many people will disagree with you and say that the issue of corruption has been so entrenched and what do you call it, that taking into consideration that many senior officers, not that they were retired. For example, an accountant general of a federation is not a small man, but he has just been picked up like an ordinary citizen. I'm coming. Then the former secretary to the government of the federation was picked up exactly like that, the same way, and things of that nature. But so what do you think about that? Don't you think the president is doing his way? He cannot be everywhere.
That is not news. Under Obasanjo, a serving IGP was arrested, prosecuted. The minister who was a personal friend to Obasanjo was arrested. So that is not any news. Nobody should come here and tell us
what different thing do you want to see?
Okay, the different thing was that Obasanjo never even campaigned on the basis of anti-corruption. The reason, after the president had contested about 4 times and failed woefully, the only reason Nigerians rallied around him was because of the malfeasance of PDP and President Jonathan. The only reason
you want him to come and kill corruption?
No, but he himself said it. He said if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. So we didn't give him that.
Are we giving him enough support as citizens?
If this man had enormous goodwill in the first 6 months, go through the airports, everybody was sitting up because they were not sure. Everybody, in fact, the impression is that there's a new sheriff in town who will not take any shit from you, and that was why they presented him to us as an anti-corruption distinct figure. Do you think it was for nothing the AU made him the anti-corruption face for the whole of Africa? It was because we had that impression that he's a man who will never condone it. But what did we see? We see a full embrace of corruption. We see corruption even being decorated. We see corruption being honored. We see corruption sitting with the president in the FAC. So what ordinary Nigerian is that there is no hope. Corruption has taken over, it has won, and we all have to worship at the altar of corruption. Campaign on the basis of anti-corruption than to give us hope and then disappoint us in this criminal manner.
Why we appreciate your concern, because you are speaking as a patriot who want to see corruption dead. And the president have said, if you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. Many Nigerians will also disagree with you that the corruption as it is today is not as it was when he took over. Reasons being that by the time he took over, despite the fact that we were selling crude oil at 140, 132 and the rest of it, 29 states could no longer pay salaries. But under him, there was a collapse in crude oil earning and things of that nature. And he has never had an issue of non-payments of salaries up to date. This is 7 years running. How would you explain that if the corruption has not been paramountly tamed?
Well, we all know that in a very long time in our history, Nigeria currently today is borrowing money to pay salaries. We are borrowing money to pay salaries. In case you are not aware,
are you not sure that Okojo-Iweala came pump and play and say we were borrowing to pay salary, and yet 29 states could not pay it until he came and he gave bailouts. So now I'm coming. Now we are borrowing for infrastructure. That is what they told us, and we saw that the rail that were dead are roaring back to life. How do you explain that?
Well, sorry, the rail project never started under him. It started under the PDP. You only came to complete it.
There is more expansion. The Lagos did not start under PDP. Do you know? A professor in Lagos said, I was a professor at University of Lagos said, I have never seen a project where a rail started in an administration completed in a record time, with massive road expansion still going on beside it and the rest of it. How do you just
okay, that? You know something? The records are there for us as Nigerians.
Okay.
Now, because I don't want to come here and appear like a supporter of any of them, because as far as I'm concerned, the two leading parties are just the two sides of the same coin. Are you getting me? I know they are already beginning to exhaust themselves. We have seen their first, second, and third. Probably is their fourth 11, and we'll see their abysmal failure. And again, coming back to corruption, sir, corruption is not just about money. Corruption is just one form of, stealing money. Okay. It's just one form of corruption.
Okay.
On that form of corruption is nepotism. This is the most nepotistic president Nigeria has ever had. You may not have the data and statistics to but let us confine ourselves to the issue at stake. Now, the consensus of Nigerians is that we have seen highbrow arrests of government officials in the past. Somebody like Ibrahim Magu was arrested in a commando style. A panel set up, headed by one of the credible Nigerian judges, Justice Ayo Salabi. Yeah. Nigerians were waiting to see what becomes of Magu. If he was wrong, we want to see him punished and serve deterrence. If it was in error, we want to see him vindicated, so that we don't cut short the career of a young man abysmally and things of that nature. But that whole thing came like Andrew Liversalt and died down, and Nigerians were not appropriately briefed. We are still giraffing over it. Nigerians are asking, with this kind of, we also saw the example of MENA that started under President Jonathan. The drama entered under this one. He was even restated at a point in the middle of the night. Then the president sacked him when he came to know about it in the afternoon, and all of that. He disappeared again. He always have an escape route from the prying eyes of our security forces. We are saying, Nigerians are saying, will this case of Idris Ahmad go the same way? That is what you alluded to initially. The more you stole, the more soft landing you may probably get. I can guarantee you nothing will happen other than this last matters. Because a government that can pardon those who are convicted, the opportunity it adds to send a message that no matter how highly placed you are, if you do the crime, you are going to do the time. If it can do that, what will you do to me? To Rashid, the Attorney General. Don't forget, Accountant General, sorry. Don't forget that man was due to have retired. He hits the compulsory age of retirement of 60. But this same man, this same president brought him. Then what is corruption? Tell me what is corruption. If your own rules, basic rules that are there in the books, you cannot respect it. This man was due for retirement. What did you do? You extended his, his time in the civil service. And what can you expect such a man that you bend the rules for to now be somebody who will respect the rules? I put it to you, nothing will happen. Other than this last matters. In the next 1-2 months, this matter will die and nothing will happen.
Don't you think that the issue is complex, more complex than you are placing it to the president? Because the president is one man. He has multifaceted, complex establishment he's presiding over. And there will be recommendation. If those who are benefiting from the thievery of the accountant general and are working closer or closely to him, recommended that, oh, this accountant general is doing marvelous well, and they presented facts and figures to him, what will you do if you are in his
And I will ask
position?
them, what does the rule say about his tenure? If the rule says it's 60, let him go. In a country of 200 million, it's only one man that is fantastic.
But do you know he has the prerogative?
As far as I'm concerned, that man is not even a member of the #1 apex accounting body in Nigeria. So nothing can be fantastic about him. I put it to you. He's not a member of the accounting body in Nigeria.
No, we are talking about the complexity of governance.
There's nothing
because
complex.
You may become a governor or a president tomorrow.
Sir,
if your assistant deceives you about
I have a duty to those who elected me. There were promises that were made, and I know, understanding that the buck stops at my table. The question is, if you have respect for rule and order, nobody can come and deceive you. And because they know you have it, they will not even bring such advice to you. That you know this Oga will never, if it's against the law, you know you will never agree with it. They will not come to you with such advice. But if they know Oga is amenable, you can, on the basis of nepotism, on the basis of sectionalism, on the basis of religion, appeal to a sentiment and you will bend. They will come with such advice. And that's what we have right now. If you are nepotistic, on the basis of that, to come and tell you, to give you advices that's against your own enlightened self-interest. And I'm sorry to say,
proceeding from there, how do we prevent? What will you suggest as the best way to prevent this kind of malfeasances that we are experiencing, the audacity of stealing? Sometimes we heard about audacity of hope, but what we have now, audacity of impunity. Let's put it that way. What do we do about it? How do we go about it?
First and foremost is we need to put a system in place that makes it impossible for one man to steal that much. I mean, you know, because one of the definition for corruption is opportunity. When you have the opportunity and then you have the discretion and then there's no any form of safeguard, nobody can ask you a question. And I think that in this case, that's what we have. There's opportunity. The man has the discretion because he's the accountant of the federal government. He's in charge of receipts and payments and all the rest. And then it means that there's a very lax room for him to be supervised, to be questioned, and for him to be interrogated about the certain things he does. We need to put in place systems to check. Public account committee, what are they doing? And then we have, and again, most importantly is that we must make example of people. That will come. For me, that's the last option. The first thing is put in place those systems. Let me tell you an example. I'm involved in a particular project in one of the most corrupt sectors of Nigerian economy. But just through government effort of putting in place standard operating procedure, putting in place opportunity for members of the public or those who use the ports to complain, we have been able to put Nigeria in the global map. I'm talking about the vessel side of things in the ports. Vessels come to Nigeria before. Captains are afraid because they know because of UK Bribery Act and the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, you can go to jail for something your agent does in Nigeria that you don't even know about. So ship captains are coming to Nigeria before. They are afraid. They are full of trepidation. We started these projects about some 5-6 years ago, and gradually we have seen how putting in place systems of checks and balances, an opportunity for people to report wrongdoing, how it has reduced corruption on that side of port operation, the vessel side. And today Nigeria is being celebrated as an example of how you can fight corruption. And we think this is something that you can replicate in other sectors of the economy, which is why I talked about putting in place systems of checks and balances. And then there should be a system for feedback, so that if people are not doing what they should do, people can report back. And then there should be organs that can effectively move in. And that's why I must give kudos to the Nigerian Shippers Council. I must give kudos to the Technical Unit of Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms. And I must give kudos to the ICPC too, who was involved in this, including MPA and other cooperating port agencies. Because together, they themselves came together on the basis of the gaps they found and said, okay, what can we do? We need to make things better. This sector is important to Nigeria's economy. And we have seen examples of putting in place systems, standard operating procedures, opportunity for members, grievance mechanisms, and then sanctions, regimes of sanction has been able to help us, make our vessel clearing side better. So, if we do that, and then we have a system to sanction those who decide to be errant, not to conform, people will start to sit up. Because, as I said, what makes our case worse is that people are sure that if I do the crime, nothing happens. In other parts of the world, the reason why people tend to behave is not because they are better than us. It's because they know that that system will catch you eventually. And if you are caught, there's no story, you go to jail.
One of the largest economy that is intimidating the entire world, even almost taking over. As a matter of fact, they have upstaged the United States in investments ratio in Africa. That is China. China will kill for 10 million. And many Nigerians have been saying that, should we embrace capital punishment for some certain degrees of thievery?
Well, for me, I will not go that far, because in Nigeria in the past, we have employed capital punishment for things like armed robbery. But despite that, we've seen no people who escaped because of that culture of impunity, because they are well connected. So ultimately, when you talk about capital punishment, it is the small rats that will end up being killed. The big rats will never be touched. Because you are talking about a culture, a process of patronage, where if I steal, I have people that I service. When this accountant general, when his time was due to leave, was it not the big men, the emirs, the imams, the ministers that went to the president to prevail on him to extend his tenure, even against the law?
You will even think it is imam, and you will not even know that one Mr. Kola is involved and one Mr. is involved.
That's why I said ministers. So when I said ministers, I said because it's about a system of patronage. You may be surprised. Okay, let us even go to other sectors. Because when our elites, they have their own system of patronage. And when it comes to sharing, they don't remember religion. They don't remember ethnicity. Are you getting me? That is why you can see them now. Okay, like I was, when IBB got married, so he gave out one of his daughters, and the president colleague gave out. You saw them now. North, east, south, west.
There was no divide.
There was no divide. They know themselves. They are the members of the same
landing of the aircraft.
You know how many jets you saw there? They were all from all over Nigeria. When it comes to sharing, they don't have those problems. The only time you see them have problems is when they have disagreement about how to share, or what portion of.
Now let us take it to the angle of our judiciary. When Mena was accused, little time he will pass out. I don't even know which airport he's passing through. He will be in Dubai. The last time they apprehended him, it was from Niger and things of that nature. Again, the case started under Jonathan. It never ended until it was convicted under this regime, and how many months ago, and things of that nature. So, since even under President Yar'Adua, Jonathan, the bill was resubmitted by President Buhari to the National Assembly. The bill on expeditious trials of corrupt cases. That bill is not seeing the light of the day. And yet, only about a few months ago, the National Assembly is moving drastically to establish a commission that will be taking in the proceeds of this thing. How do they get the proceeds coming in droves if there is no expeditious trial and the rest of it? What is your take in all of this? Is it not a misplacement of priority?
Because they know it's about. They know they will be the one that will be the victim of such expeditious trial, and it pays them to have their trial going on for 10 years. We know one of their presiding officers had the case that if there had been expeditious trial, he would most likely have been in jail and not be in the National Assembly, talk less of becoming a leader of one of the arms. You understand me? So they know that if there's expeditious trial, you'll be the first victim, and therefore it's not in their own enlightened self-interest to want to do that. But they can come up with things like this because why? They say, okay, instead of me going to jail, I can negotiate and give you part of it. So that's why they are more interested in that commission. Not because they are interested in that commission because it will serve the best interest of Nigeria. No, it's a way of giving themselves soft landing. You know, there was even a time one of them came up with an idea, maybe not under this regime, probably during the first term of of granting amnesty.
Okay, yes.
To corrupt individuals. You can imagine such effrontery and such audacity.
And plea bargaining.
You understand me? And then who benefits from when they smuggled in plea bargaining and they got all their legal friends to justify it and rationalize it under our laws? Who was it benefiting? Was it for the man who stole phone? Was it for the man who was hungry and then went into a supermarket and stole food? No, it was for themselves. So that is why the Nigerian people really needs to get organized. Me, I am of the firm belief that Nigeria right now is a captured state that's been captured by its elites who are not patriotic, who are self-serving, who doesn't have the best interests of Nigeria at heart. Because, okay, how do you explain? Go to the National Assembly. There's hardly one of them who does not have at least 2 or 3 international passports. There's hardly one of them. They have bought it by investments. And which investment? From stolen funds, they buy international passports of other countries, especially the Caribbean countries, including your ministers and your governors. Such persons have the best interests of the nation at heart. They are nothing but mercenaries. And the mercenaries will only come to steal, to destroy, and to loot. That is part of our biggest being. You cannot tell me you are a minister in Nigeria, you are a governor, you are a lawmaker, and then you have 2, 3 passports. So where lies your allegiance? When you know that today you can wake up in Nigeria, in Lagos, and if you have destroyed the country, you can find yourself somewhere in the Caribbean, you are definitely not going to have the best interests of that nation at heart. So what we have is a crop of mercenaries themselves as our political leaders.
Would you concede or approve of the establishment of a commission to warehouse proceeds from corruption?
Well, given the fact that the proceeds currently are being mismanaged, it's like the recovered loot are being reluted. It would be good to have a mechanism, number one, for managing it that will be transparent, that you and I can monitor.
Okay. I
think we need to have that framework. And the framework may not necessarily call for a whole new organization. Because within the laws of efcc, ICPC, and one or 2 other laws, there are certain rudimentary process and procedures for how recovered loot should be managed. What we need to do is to strengthen it, or probably there are weaknesses in the law. I mean, strengthen those weaknesses. For me, because the idea of creating a bureaucracy all the time has never solved our problem. Just like the same way we make laws every time for every new thing has not reduced the incidence of corruption and impunity in our system. What we need to do is look at the current framework. If there are weaknesses, strengthen the laws, and then establish a mechanism where recovered loot can be transparently managed, and then members of the public who are interested can say, okay, I want to know what is happening, and then I can go there and see.
Because many Nigerians are feeling that if you establish a commission, you will either have a DG, then you will have a whole block of bureaucracy, employment, and remunerations and all of that, and that kind of a thing, building up on Nigeria. Will that not actually run contrary to the doctrines of the single treasury that we have embraced?
No, for me, I think it's just almost like, that's why I'm not in support of having a new bureaucracy, creating a new organization. That's why I mentioned about strengthening those elements of the current laws, ICPC, FCC laws that talked about the covering of loot and all the rest. Look at them. If there are gaps, let us amend the laws to address those gaps and then establish a mechanism rather than an institution. It's a mechanism. You can say, okay, once we recovered, this is how you drop it with the CBN. If it is like a physical asset, you give it to, I mean, maybe an individual or groups of individuals or a company to manage those assets such that those assets do not decay. Because we have seen cases where those some assets were, were recovered, they were left abandoned, and today it's Oceans that live in some of those assets. So we must have a mechanism to ensure that those things they don't go into decay. If they are monetary assets, you can have a dedicated account in CBN, with records clearly maintained. And again, if there are things like even vehicles, you can have a process where those vehicles are kept and maintained in such a way that they don't decay or they don't end up being converted to private and personal use. Because there has been accusations that some of the vehicles that were recovered became the personal assets of some of the personnel of some of these agencies that are involved. What we need is a mechanism, very clear-cut mechanism of how those assets that are recovered should be maintained, who should be their guardian. I don't believe we need a whole new bureaucracy to do that. That is
talking about morality in officialdom, and ethics. In those days, I have heard from many of senior citizens that I happen, because I love courting the senior citizens, particularly those I considered mentors and,
You're already one now. You're already a senior citizen now.
So, and they told me, we were even afraid to make use of federal government vehicle that were given to us as minister. We won't allow it to take our wives to the market. We will not they talked about so many things that they will not do as a result of ethics. Even collecting, what do you call it? Say, somebody came to visit you as a minister, as a permanent secretary, and decided to give you a gift. You will not collect it, because he is not giving the gift because you are Babatunde.
No.
He is giving it because you are in that
office
and that kind of a thing. And even the prophets of religion have also questioned such things and things of that nature. So, how did we degenerate to the extent that now it is not only that if those cars, those car misses, we lost those cars inside our own personal thing. We even changed them and that kind of a thing to our own personal use. Then we transcend that to evacuating monies from the cover of an office where we are presiding. How did we arrive at this low level?
For me, I will still go back to this topic about impunity, because it's gradually. It's a process of decay. It's either you arrest that process, remove the bad apples. If you have a basket of good apples and you have just only one bad one and you leave it there, over time it will infect the others. But it will save that basket of apple. What you do logically is to take out the bad apples, and so you can salvage the remaining apples. I think part of our problem is that we have allowed impunity to reign supreme. Because we got to a point where we have different class of citizens. Those who are privileged, those who are protected, those who are above the laws. We have had people commit murder in Nigeria and go scot-free because of where they come from, who they belong to, who is their connection, who is their father, what is their religion. We have had it. And when you do that, you send a wrong signal to society that you can actually do it too and get away with it. For example, the Code of Conduct Act makes it very clear the type of gift you can get as a public servant. Tell me how many people have been arrested or even prosecuted or sentenced for collecting the type of gift they should not get. There was once a man... and
they are even contributing, sorry to interrupt, they are even contributing 10 million, 100 million, so that they can buy form to run for presidency. For an officer that is sitting in the office, please proceed.
You can imagine, there was once an MD of NNPC who stashed some dollars somewhere in Kaduna. He was caught and he said it's a gift. Under our laws, under the Code of Conduct Act, he should be in jail. Because it is stated clearly the amount of gift you can get, and if it goes beyond that value, the fact that you owe a duty to the public to declare it publicly. These are in the laws, so we don't need to go and invent the wheel anywhere. But the question is, what has happened to such elements? If people like that go scot-free, what do you think a man who is sitting on that table currently would do? He will do worse because the last man who did it, nothing happened to him. He went scot-free. I mean, under the Code of Conduct Act, as a certain level of public officials, you are not supposed to have foreign accounts. All those who were seen, who are caught to have foreign accounts, what happened to them? Nothing. They went scot-free. So if the next man come, why won't he operate a foreign account? So except we address this culture of impunity, where people know that if I commit this infraction, I will pay for it. Others who are coming behind them will do worse things. We need to address the culture of impunity. I mean, nobody should be above the law. Once you do it, and I keep saying it, Nigerians are not the worst people on earth. Don't let anybody deceive you. What we have is just a permissive culture of impunity. The same Nigerians go abroad and they conform to rules another now. They conform. If those people, if you bring them here, given our culture of permissiveness and impunity, they will be as worse as Nigerians are.
If not worse than us.
So what we need, therefore, is to address that systemic problem that makes it possible for a man to commit a crime against the public and go scot-free. Not just go scot-free. He goes to continue to enjoy the process of that loot, the process of impunity. He continues to enjoy the gains of impunity. And other members of society see him. And when they see him, what do you think they will do? They will think that's the normal thing to do, that is the right thing to do. So,
if you have one word to advise on this issue we have just discussed, what will it be?
Well, I think by suspending the Accountant General, a good first step has been taken. But the second one is that this should not be about show. It should not be about razzmatazz. Mr. President, ensure that the man is made to account if he's guilty. And I know that, I don't know how we explain how he got 80 billion, because we can calculate his salaries from the day he entered the civil service till now. Even if he doesn't spend a dime. If he has never spent a dime of his salary, we can calculate it.
So rounding up,
the president, please, it's not too late to make a legacy for yourself. Stop embracing
thank you
corruption.
very much. It is not too late to make a legacy that we must kill corruption. And we are following the presidential order that we must kill corruption. Therefore, this particular case should not end up in drama like the ones that Nigerians were not comfortable with in the past, because leaders must be accountable to the people. We will be transiting from here to the second segment of the discourse. And I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Babatunde Oluwaju, for being our guest today. We hope you will avail us when we call upon you some other time.
Sure, and thank you very much for having me.